we exist. When your spouse discovers his purpose, doing what he was created to do, and becoming what he was created to be, that can only contribute to your happiness as well. God does not ask you to deny your own personhood in the process. God has called you to something too. The timing to do what God has called each of you to do will work out perfectly if it's submitted to God. Those words were buried deep in my heart as we packed up our lives and headed to the Midwest, where we left our family, our friends, our home, and our life to go to a place where we knew no one. In the first year or so while I was in Chicago, I knew I was going to cry, sorry. It's still kind of painful and joyful all at the same time. In the first year or so while I was in Chicago, I volunteered at a conference at our church, and I heard a man by the name of Dan Allender speak, and he said, "Your whole story matters to God." Those words literally cracked open my heart and my soul. I began to write my story with a trail of tears, and I began to read Dan Allender's book, To Be Told, the one that we gave away last night. Eventually, I shared my story with friends in my new neighborhood. And facilitators, if you will go ahead and pull out these quotes to be told and pass those out at your tables. These are 4 paragraphs from his book. And I'm going to have Julie's table to read it for us.
First, God is not merely the creator of our life. He's also the author of our life. And he writes each person's life to reveal his divine story. There never has been, nor ever will be, another life like mine or like yours. Just as there is only one face and name like mine, so there is only one story like mine. And God writes the story of my life to make something known about himself, the one who wrote me. The same is true of you. Your life and mine not only reveal who we are, but they also help reveal who God is.
Second, neither your life nor mine is a series of random scenes that pile up like shoes in a closet. We don't have to clear out old stories to make room for new ones. Both your story and mine have unique characters, surprising plot twists, central themes, tension, suspense, and deep significance. Each is an intriguing tale, and neither is fiction. Our story is truer than any reality we know, and each of us must discover the meaning of what God has written as our life story. In our story, God shows us what he's up to and what he wants us to be about.
With the third core issue, things start getting exciting. When I study and understand my life story, I can join God as co-author. I don't have to settle for merely being a reader of my life. God calls me to be a writer of my future. He asked me to take the only life I will ever be given and shape it in the direction he outlines for me. I am to keep writing, moving forward into the plot that God has woven into my soul.
And fourth, there is necessity and blessing of telling our story to others. To the degree that we know God and then join him in writing our story, we are honored to join others in the calling of our storytelling. God, of course, is the master storyteller. His self-revelation is captured in a sweeping narrative and then given to us in the book that grips our heart and captures our soul. God also creates a story with each person's life, a story that we are meant to tell. And since we are called to tell our story, we are called to listen to the stories of others. And since we are to tell and to listen, then even more we are called to encourage others to know and tell and listen to God's story as well as their own.
Wow. When I study and understand my life story, I can join God as co-author. I don't have to merely settle for being a reader of my life. God calls me to be a writer of my future. God is the master storyteller. He creates a story with each person's life, a story we are meant to tell. And since we are called to tell our story, we are called to listen to the stories of others. And that's exactly what we're going to do together today. At this point in my story, I wasn't doing well in my life in Chicago. Young children, I'd left all of my life and 40 years of it behind, and it was a very hard season. Jay encouraged me to meet with a woman who was over spiritual mentoring at our church there. I met with her, and she listened as I told her of my frustrations, things that were going on in my life, and sort of being in the ditch. And I thought she was really listening to me. After all, she was director of spiritual mentoring. And a couple of days later, she invited me to work on a project. And I said, a project? I don't need more to do. And then she told me that it was to help others engage with their life stories, past, present, and future. I said yes, almost immediately. The invitation led to the creation of Listen to My Life, maps for recognizing and responding to God in my story, which includes the life story map that we're going to work on today. There are 7 other maps that are in this box for Listen to My Life. Here I am on the in Chicago. I'm collating and shipping Listen to My Life materials from my dining room table in Chicago. I was there from the beginning. And when we first moved to Chicago, I thought this was all about Jay's calling. But all along, God was quietly preparing me for the next chapter of my life. I also had the privilege of leading life story retreats with Sybil Towner and Sharon Swing, who are the authors of Listen to My Life. Here we are at a retreat in Dallas. We worked side by side for 7 years. Had Jay and I not left our family, our friends, and our church in South Carolina, had we not followed God's prompting for Jay to become a pastor and move to Chicago, there's no way that we would be at Peachtree today. We had to trust God's plan for our lives, even when we couldn't see the whole story. And now, 23 years later, I'm able to look back and see what a gift it has been. This season was a surprising plot twist, full of tension and suspense, but also deep significance. God was writing something that we never could have imagined. So facilitators, if you will now, if you'll hand out the life story maps, they're in your little bags. And also the Post-it notes and the pens that are in the little pocket on the outside, I believe. If you'll pass those around. You can start to open your materials. There's a little clear seal that you can kind of pop open. And then pull out your actual map. I think there are probably 3 of them in your brochure. Do we need scissors or are your fingers working? Got it? Wait, we didn't triple check the stickers. These were used for the Christmas tea, so we were just trying to be, economical and use things that we already had. So hopefully you can get them open. Okay. So pull out the colored maps that are in the middle. Just pull those out so we can talk about those. I think almost everybody has theirs. Anybody need scissors? Melissa, do you have some scissors? Okay. There's a plastic knife that's being passed around. Next time we'll put knives on the table. Okay. All right. I think we're almost there. So one of the things that you'll notice is across the top of the map is a timeline. So depending on how long your life is, you may need to use a couple of maps or 3 maps to kind of look at your entire life, right? Okay. Then also in the sections below, you'll see at the top, it says aspirations and dreams, and then your highs and your lows. And then at the bottom is noticing God, which is somewhat of what we talked about last night. You're going to start by brainstorming your life using Post-it notes. And those are in the side pocket of the facilitator stuff, along with some pencils. In the outside pocket, I believe. So the Post-it notes can be used for sort of starting to put your life story down on your map. You can think about the moments or seasons of your life. Your birth, college, jobs, moves, relationships, turning points, where you notice God. Just get started writing it down in Post-it notes with a timeline in mind. The next map is just a sample for you to see of how I have mine started, right? Here's the early version. Just Post-it notes of moments and milestones. When I was born, I think we could probably all come up with that pretty easy. Maybe that's the first one you could do, is put your where you were born, at the beginning of the timeline. Then I also put where I accepted Christ at the bottom under noticing God when I was 7 years old. And then I put when Brock was born in 1993, when I met Jay, which was obviously before Brock was born. Not sure why that's out of order. And this may be the only version you get to today, is Post-it notes outlining your timeline, and that is awesome. But if you're making great progress, and I know some of you are artists, like really good artists in here, so don't laugh when you see my art. So sort of for phase 2, you can start to put symbols that kind of represent your life. You add drawings and colors and maybe chapter titles. Here I added some symbols. A church steeple. That was my first church, Ebenezer Baptist Church in Florence, South Carolina. I added the steeple for that. I was a math major, so I just put math, and I also loved music when I was at church. I also put a tiger paw for Clemson. Go Tigers. Anybody else a Tiger in here? Yay. Oh, yeah, of course, Sarah. Yay. Okay, so everybody might have a little college thing that they want to put up there. A heart for when my son and my daughter were born. And then on the second page of my map, I wrote things like at the bottom, there's a megaphone. And that represents when God said, literally to us, move to Chicago. And that was what happened. And then Listen to My Life. That's supposed to be a thumbprint. Doesn't really look like one, but that's Listen to My Life, of where I began to work on the Listen to My Life materials with Sybil and Sharon. And then I drew an Atlanta Braves A for moving to Atlanta. And another steeple for Peachtree Church. Each symbol represents fingerprints across the chapters of my story with God. So now I want you to pull out the beginning of the map, which is the first four pages or so that are not the color pages, but the black and white pages. And so to get started, I would have you read pages 1 through 4. This has a lot of questions and things to help you begin to think about all the details of your life story. It's got great details to get your mind going. And then you can start with the Post-it notes. We have pencils and color pencils that you can use, pens and color pencils. And don't hold back. This is for you and for God. And we are going to share some of this, our life story, this afternoon, but you don't have to share everything. You don't have to share the hard parts of your story. But I think it is good to document where those things happened in your life, just so that you have it written down. You're going to go to a quiet space. You can stay in here and be quiet. We'll have some music going in the background. There's some empty tables on the other side of Fellowship Hall if you want to go spread out there. There's places kind of all over campus. If the door is open, you can go in and use those spaces. And we're going to take about, let me look at the time. Perfect. We're going to take about 90 minutes to really think about your own story. And you're going to pretend like you're in a library. So even if you see somebody in the bathroom or walking down their hall, you're not going to start chit-chatting. You're just going to say, like you're just hi, and that's all. So come back here about 11:25, because we'll start at 11:30. But any questions about getting started with this life story mapping? I'm proud of y'all for being here and for doing this. So now you may take your materials, stay or go, grab a treat, a last minute treat or a cup of coffee to take with you. So thank you for being here.